Welcome to the Political Affairs Podcast, politicalaffairs.net. It's November 3rd, 2010. On this episode, the Communist Party USA offers an initial analysis of the election results, in which Democrats suffered a serious setback in Congress, jeopardizing a labor and people's movement agenda. Stay with us.
The Progressive Podcast Network. ProgressivePodcastNetwork.org.
In a brief leadership meeting this morning, November 3rd, the Communist Party offered an initial analysis of the midterm election results. After giving some of the early numbers indicating a big Republican win in the House and their modest gains in the Senate, CPUSA Political Action Commission Chair Joelle Fishman detailed some of the specifics.
There were some reactionary candidates elected, including Rand Paul, Rubio in Florida, and Barletta to the House in Pennsylvania, for example. But many of the high-profile Tea Partiers were defeated, including in Delaware, California, and Connecticut. And despite huge sums of money that were spent bombarding the media with vicious ads, here in Connecticut, Linda McMahon spent $45 million of her own money on this thing, and she was defeated. Then there were some long-term Democrats who were defeated, like Spratt and Skelton and Chet Edwards and Ciro Rodriguez. There were several blue dogs who distanced themselves from the president, said they weren't going to vote for Pelosi and all that sort of thing, who did not get reelected. There was the category of House members who had been elected in traditionally Republican districts in 06 and 08. A number of those were defeated, although a number of those also were able to hold on to their seats. In Connecticut, the two who were toss-ups held on to their seats. The Republicans took a number of open seats also that had been held by retiring Democrats. So that's some of the different categories. Progressives Russ Feingold and Alan Grayson were both defeated, but on the overall, most progressives that were targeted very viciously were reelected with solid margins. According to the information I have here, Grijalva is still too close to call. I don't know if somebody has more information on that particular race.
The outcome of the election showed the results of the work of the corporate far-right Republican alliance aimed at undermining the Obama presidency since his landslide victory in 2008, more than offering a real program for the people.
From the time Obama was elected, the corporate extreme right wing was busy at work with their strategies to bring the administration down and tear apart the coalition and pull independents away. And one was to obstruct everything in Congress to give the appearance that Democratic control was the problem standing in the way of progress, which created, and also to create, and it did, demoralization among supporters looking for immediate change. The Obama administration accomplished many things, but economic relief was small and too slow. And so, therefore, any talk about the economy beginning to recover rings hollow when you're unemployed or you've lost your home.
This corporate Republican alliance depended on lies, fear, and hatred to spread its divisive message.
And the extreme right wing fed on this uncertainty and anger. They used the media, especially Fox, and spent huge sums to create a climate of fear and hatred in the country. And some of these big lies took hold in some people's minds, three of them. This business about death panels being part of the health care reform persists. I heard it during the campaign trail. It was used as a springboard for blaming Democratic candidates, and then we had the example in Massachusetts of Scott. And then the idea that the stimulus was another Wall Street bailout was used as a cover-up of the local projects undertaken and the jobs created. And the Republicans then posed as the ones actually fighting for jobs and against Wall Street bailouts, which is turning reality on its head. And then the idea that Obama and the Democrats created the deficit, that idea was used to cover up the whole horror of the Bush policies. And we can't ignore the racist and divisive content of the hate and fear ads. and the voter suppression efforts that were targeted especially to the Latino community.
By contrast, the labor movement played a huge positive role in holding back much of the GOP tidal wave.
The most outstanding piece of work in this election, I believe, was the Labor 2010 program. Many union members were activated for the first time. Union structures were strengthened. Class consciousness was raised. And the statistics will be available soon. But I do believe that we should examine it very thoroughly in terms of building for going forward.
Fishman called for looking forward to the next fight and, in the meantime, mobilizing the people to block the Republicans' radical agenda.
I'm thinking we take the raised class consciousness from this giant battle and we apply it to the next round. And that's a challenge to our party to deepen and expand class consciousness. The Republicans campaigned on the basis of this promise to America, which is a promise to shrink government and spending. And yet in the country, there is a majority sentiment for the idea that we're in this together and to watch out for each other. And the promise is the opposite, based on you're on your own. I want the money the government takes for taxes. And so the consequences are not understood. The conditions are less favorable after this election than they were before this election. But this major battle goes on. And public workers and the services they provide are on the front line of attack. And it has to be brought into the equation that to cut the deficit, the huge amount spent on tax cuts for the rich and the huge amount spent on military have to be dealt with. And also continuing the fight, first of all, for good-paying jobs and to save Social Security and not repeal health care and Wall Street reform and the DREAM Act and immigration reform. These things are now remain on the table, and they're going to be on the table in a different kind of battle. As I said before, much of the Republican promise runs counter to majority opinion in the country, and that is leveraged to build upon on the issues.
Communist Party Chair Sam Webb explained that rather than a mandate for the Republicans, the economic crisis was the fundamental cause of the defeat.
I would say it was a major defeat for the president, for the Democratic Party, and for the people's movement. Not that there weren't things that we could build on going forward, but I think it was a major setback. I think the balance of forces has jolted in the wrong direction. I think the terrain of struggle has changed. I think we're now on the defensive. I think the wind is in the sails of the Republican Party. I think the biggest factor that accounts for this wave of discontent is the economy. Had there been tangible signs of economic revival, the results would have been very different. Perhaps the Republicans, the Tea Party might have gained some seats, but nothing, I think, close to what they did. I think the economic factor, that framed everything. I mean, without that, the message of the Republican Party wouldn't have resonated like it did. I think the Republicans obviously going to press their advantage. They feel pretty good. They feel the wind is, at their backs and all that sort of thing. So we can expect them to press their advantage, and there's some immediate things coming up, even in this lame duck Congress, that we're going to have to mobilize the movement around, including, especially, I think, tax cuts. And I think we got to, I think we, and hopefully, I think the administration will put up a fight on that particular.
People's World labor editor John Wojcik highlighted some important reasons for the shift in the political terrain.
The first 2 years of the Obama administration, the activity and support it got from progressive Democrats, the labor movement, everybody else, this was 2 years geared towards policy, fixing a horrible disaster. And, a decision was made, really, I think, to spend political capital from that big 2008 victory to solve this incredible mess that the economy and everything else is in. That doesn't necessarily pay off in short-term, political rewards. the gains will be long-term.
Communist Party Executive Vice Chair Jarvis Tyner argued the right wing shouldn't count its political eggs before they're hatched.
Fundamentally, the position of the extreme right and even the right is out of step with the needs of the working people, the country, world, the betterment of humankind. But they are brilliant at packaging it like it's something good. They really, but Reagan had that ability, and they have the biggest microphone in the country over the media in terms of just their whole base. They were able to activate their base. They started the day Obama got elected, and I'm sure in areas where the right was defeated, the turnout was good. I'm sure where labor and civil rights forces, so on, immigrant rights people got involved, the right was likely defeated. So, in other words, the people are there, the forces are there, the formula is there to defeat these guys, but we have got a hell of a challenge in front of us. Now, they're going to help us because their notion that smaller government is what people want be in the way of every major crisis solution that we have. You can't solve housing if government is not the solution. You can't solve health care if government's not the solution. Nutrition, education, all kinds of issues. And if you're going to give a blank check to the military, you can't solve anything. We're now spending $1 million a minute for the two wars. You cannot solve anything. We got to put them on the spot on these things and move to defeat them.
CPUSA Labor Commission Chair Scott Marshall highlighted the special role of the labor movement in the election.
The continuing independence of the labor movement was heightened tremendously by this election, and in very specific ways, not just in general. Not only did the campaigning take place from union halls, et cetera, but this time, as Trumka told us when he was in Chicago, they began the nuts and bolts of building independent labor campaign organizations in 5 key cities around the country, of which Chicago is one. I think the question of how the narrative on jobs, the narrative on the economic crisis is something that needs a lot of work. And I'll tell you, working in an area where a Democrat had won and went back Republican, although it has a high union density, the question that I think that really blew us away was the question of the deficit. We heard that over and over again. People are unclear. They are scared of this deficit thing. Good working class people don't understand that, and there was no good narrative. And this is going to be a struggle going forward because now, of course, the conventional wisdom is that, yeah, we got to cut. I don't think we can just change the subject. I think how we frame the idea about the deficit and the need for stimulus and the need for a fight on the ground for jobs, I think is going to be critical to moving forward and developing. How we get in the grassroots stuff in the neighborhoods, in the areas, and how we're fighting on the jobs and how we're fighting on relief for people. Some of our experiences around our Unemployed Action Center really shows and proves how we can attract people to the party and around the party. But I think we have to refine that, and that has to be a lot more global.
Find more analysis at peoplesworld.org or cpusa.org. What are your thoughts? Send us your comments at editor@politicalaffairs.net. Thanks for listening, and join us again next time.